Welcome to How to Be a Person, a podcast about life with me, your host, Giuliano. All right, Dr. Joseph, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing great, Giuliano. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing well. I appreciate you coming on the show. I'm kind of excited to chat a little bit. For people that don't know, I use this service called Podmatch that kind of connects me with guests, and it's been really awesome. I feel like, but like 99% of the conversations I've had have been amazing. And so I always like looking at people's profiles and stuff. And yeah, I'm excited to just kind of chat a little bit. So just tell me about yourself, and we'll go from there.
No, yeah, I'm looking forward to it, man. And I mean, God, it's been a long life. I started out, in Detroit, Michigan, raised by parents who loved us incredibly, us five kids. But
Okay.
man, they struggled the whole time I was growing up. I watched my parents struggle financially and health because of the working massive hours and everything else. And I remember 9 years old thinking, man, I'm not gonna live like you guys are. I didn't know what it was, but I just knew there was something not right there, And then I got into my adult years and I lived the exact same way. I struggled. And if something came easy to me, Giuliano, I felt like I didn't deserve it because I didn't work hard enough for it.
Yeah.
And from there I got into corporate America. I got into ground floor and sales, building territories. And I would work my tail off, man. I travel 3,000 to 5,000 miles every week trying to develop territories, barely making a mark. And I'm watching these other sales guys who are taking off Fridays and golfing and coming in late on Mondays, and they were just killing it. And I couldn't figure out what was broken in me. And at 22 years old, I set out on this journey, not knowing where it was going or anything, set out on this journey to try and figure out why am I broken and how do I fix it? And from there, that's led into the works I do today. It led as I started learning more about the only thing that ever stopped me in life was my own thinking, my own programming, and all of that. And so as I started understanding that and diving deeper into it, and, I'm telling you this in seconds, but it was decades.
Yeah.
The trial and error through the whole thing and giving up and going back to it and then giving up and there was so much struggle in that. And as I started learning this stuff and as I started understanding the power of my internal programming, and that was causing all of that lack of results from massive efforts and actions. And during those times I would, go to look for coaching programs. Like I did counseling and I would do all this stuff looking for what's going to fix me. And I would get involved in those things and I would do my very, very best. And I learned a lot, but I never saw any changes happening in my results. And then later on, I would realize, like decade and a half later, I would realize it's because I wasn't that plan wasn't for me. Those one size fit alls that we got your roadmap to like that. It wasn't for me. I'm not saying for anybody else, but it wasn't for me. I had to be somebody other than who I was in order to even go into those programs and do that. It caused, and that led to even more programming for me. Like I'm broken and I'm not worthy. Because I have to be somebody other than who I am in order to achieve things. And that was such a tough pill to swallow when I started understanding that. And then as I leaned more and more and more into the works I do today and started understanding it, it was never me that was broken. I just had some programming and some thinking and ideals and beliefs and things like that were causing those limitations in that. And I didn't know how to break them. And eventually I learned how to do it. And within a year and a half, I went from nervous all the time about losing my position in sales to landing 18, 22, largest $25 million year-over-year contracts for company. And then I went into leadership positions, and then I led sales teams, sales personnel the same way I learned it based on them. And I started seeing, having higher levels of top producers on sales teams. And then I went into a vice president of sales. Eventually I started helping a couple of organizations in bankruptcy get back to profitability. And that's every gray hair I have, man. I'm not kidding you. That's such a hard life, man. And so when we got the last company, I said when the new owners come in, I'm done doing this. I really loved what I was doing and helping people live better lives. Yeah. And I didn't like all the other hats, the 30, 60, 90 day, 6 months, 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, 10 year forecasting. And I never understood the need for, all of that stuff. And so when we got the owners, I stepped away. moved down to the mountains of South Carolina, and this business has been growing since.
And that's where you are now.
Yeah.
Interesting. Interesting. Yeah. It's funny. Like when you were saying about, feeling like there was something wrong with you. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people resonate with that, but what's kind of funny is that it's almost like it's like there was nothing wrong with you. It was actually like you were operating perfectly. Like you were getting the results for what was happening in here. It was perfect, working perfect. You just had to change what's happening in here to get different results.
Now, I wish I'd have met you like 3.5 decades ago, dude. You have saved me so much, but I had to go through what I had to go through,
Yeah.
and in helping business owners today and helping people live better lives and helping people break through it. I had to experience that, and I had to experience the way, just recently I was talking to somebody. I was helping with a company and get more distributors set up and things like that, as a consulting thing. And as I was doing so, the person would kind of be bothered by me all the time. And they say, man, you goof around too much. Like you joke around and this and that and everything else. And so one night we were in Nashville, we got stuck by a snowstorm a couple of years ago, and they had that big storm there. And so we ate dinner there and stuff, and the waitress came, and I was kind of kidding around a little bit and stuff, and making her laugh. And so she left, and the person I was with goes, see, that's what I mean. And I go, do you know why? Do you know why I joke around and I have such a joy for life? And she goes, no, why? I go, because I was so miserable for so long. I didn't want to live. I really, truly didn't want to live. And today, I get to live life this way. I have joy. I want to see other people laugh and smile. I want people to walk away. I don't care if they think I'm a dingbat or not, but I want people to walk away happier than before they talked with me, And if I can, and that's my passion for helping people live better lives, is if I can spark something in somebody that helps them to break through something they may not even be aware of. God, that's like, living on cloud 9 for me today, Giuliano.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. No, I love that you said that. I think that if you have to, it's funny. There's a lot of people who are very, and this isn't a judgment of them. I think a lot of us have felt this way at times, but there's a lot of people who just feel like they just don't like people, right? They're like, oh, I don't like this. I don't want to do this. I don't want to deal with people. And I think because what you just said there, were like, when you leave someone better than you found them, it's like, when you experience that over and over again, you start to realize it's like, that's almost like the whole point of everything, right? Like I think about the movie Castaway with Tom Hanks, where he was just on the island and he goes nuts, right? And he ends up to the point where he draws a face on a volleyball to pretend like there's someone there.
Yeah.
And it's like, we all think that it's like, oh, you hate people, but other people are like the whole point of everything. And if you can like add value to other people in a way that, like you said, they leave happier than when they ran into you in the first place, it's like, that's such a great feeling.
And and that was, all this stuff I've learned throughout time. It's been so incredible. By doing what I love doing, I grow more than I ever even thought would be possible, So even with people, like I used to have that where, there's the people I like and align with, and I have their back and everything else. And then there's the enemies, right? Is how I used to look at it. Is really, there's the enemies. There's the people that tick me off, hit the buttons, this and that. And over time, what I've learned is they're all good people. They may not be my front row of people, but they're all good people. And some people help me better clarify and understand how I want to live this walk. And other people remind me how I don't want to live this walk. And so I live by this rule today, Giuliano, is everybody is exactly who and how they're supposed to be. And out of that, I get to decide which ones I spend time with and which ones I don't. It's that simple.
Sorry, I'm sitting here laughing because so much of what you're saying is if people are listening to multiple episodes, they'll hear me having said like the exact same stuff over the last several episodes. Like, and the reason I'm laughing is because it's just super validating for me, right? Like, I think we could tell by the color of our hairs that you have some years on me, and so it's validating for me to hear it from.
That's an interview over.
You're like, oh, now you've made it into the enemy camp.
The sad part about that is I realized that difference.
Yeah. So for me, it feels good because it makes me feel, wow, okay, yeah, it's exactly what I thought. And that's the conclusion that I've come to as well. that people are good. And I was telling you before we got on, and people who are listening know this, that I've driven for Uber and Lyft for more than a decade at this point, probably almost 12 years. And I've basically just had like a revolving door of people in and out of my car. And that was part of what led me to that conclusion, because I've had experiences obviously outside of that,
Mhm.
but experiences outside of that that, might prove the opposite, that not all people are good. But having this revolving door of people and like having conversations with all of them and talking to them, and even the ones that I didn't like talk to or didn't want to talk to me,
Mhm.
I still walked away from that going, people are good. Like everyone is always, I remember when I first started, okay, like I've been doing it a long time. When I first started with it, like people were like, what's that? Like that's how new it was, They're like,
Yeah.
wait, you're just letting strangers get in your car? Like it was this crazy theory, right?
Yeah.
And now it's so normal, which makes that kind of funny. But my point is, at the time, that really was like a fear. It was like, wait, you're just letting strangers get in your car? And now it's
Mhm.
so funny because I'm like, I love strangers. Like,
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
people. Like, this is
Yeah.
proven to me that like people are good. Like, I have people get in my car all day, every day, in and out. I have great conversations, and I'm like, I love people. And I think, and the reason why I'm bringing this up is because I'm thinking about like the current political climate. And I feel like it's really, really easy to put people in that category, like you said, of like, these are my people and these are the enemies. When in reality, I think if you get exposed to enough people, you realize, okay, we might not agree on everything. And to be honest, I
Yeah.
might even think some of your stances are stupid. But that doesn't mean that you're evil, right? It just
Yeah.
means that we're different. And like you said, it's okay that you are who you are. Like that you, and it's not just okay, it's good that you are who you are, because you need to be you.
Yeah.
But I need to be me.
Every single one of us, if we can just be who we really are, life would be so much easier and stuff.
Mm,
And I was telling you that about like everybody gets to be who they are and things like that. And if any of your listeners are struggling and stuff, that's not when the best of us shows up, when we're in that place,
mm,
and so we try and fake it and everything else, but that's not when the best of us shows up. There's a bit of good and worst of us and a bit of bad in the best of us, and
mm,
and that's part of that whole thing that brings us down. And so one of the things I love is everybody gets to be who they are, and I decide, like exactly what I said. But then when I look at it like this, is how many of those people who are under the weight of struggle, of being overburdened, who are just beat up, exhausted, fatigued, burned out, whatever you want to call it, along that, the pain side of it. And I get to meet one of those people, and I get to be a spark, and I get to work with them, and I get to help them get
mm.
through that to that other side. And then Giuliano, I get to see that authentic person showing up in that person's life. And man, that there's no better high I've ever gotten in my life than
Mm,
that right there, other than
yeah,
my son being born. Maybe.
yeah,
And when my
yeah.
beard had full color. But seriously though, that's like, people, like we call them bad people, or negative people or whatever, but a lot of that is just, again, it's that programming.
Mm.
We if I watch, when I used to watch CNN, constant negative news all the time and all the updates and everything else like that,
I never heard that.
that
I like that.
that showed up in my life, and where are you from? Where were you at right now? What?
I'm originally from Chicago, but I'm in Phoenix, Arizona now.
Okay, good. So I can share this with you and at least not get hung up on. Is like yesterday, I called all my friends from Canada one at
Okay.
a time, and I just asked how their day was going after the Olympics, U.S. Canada hockey. Yes. And do you know, only half of them, and they're the closest ones, just hung the phone up?
Are you serious?
Yeah, I'm from Michigan, so hockey was big
Okay.
there, and then when you cross over the border, there it really becomes so. But yeah, I mean, the stress, anxiety, heaviness of life. It's impossible to live through our authentic self and be in that place at the same time.
Mm,
So if we can find some help, and I know for me, when I'm in that place, if I can find some help to get back into the knowing of who I am, knowing of the power working on my behalf in my life, then I can those burdens lighten, and I can start showing up more as me.
mm. Interesting. When you say knowing who I am, you mean, what do you mean?
Who are you?
That's a good question.
And a lot of people don't ever ask themselves that question.
Yeah.
I'm a spiritual entity having a human experience.
That's what I was curious what you meant. Is if you meant
I
like
am.
by nature, or if you meant like your personality and your strengths and weaknesses, or
Well,
like what you were
personality. Yeah, I mean,
referring
our
to.
personality is part of who we are, but our personality shifts as our situations, circumstances, and conditions of life switch, right? So
Okay.
if everything is going along great and everything, my personality is one way. As I start applying pressure to life, the personality changes. It alters to the situation or circumstance. And
Okay.
so what happens is we have this brilliant mind. And the purpose of our mind, let me ask you, well, I don't want to trick you. The purpose of our mind is to solve complex problems.
Hmm.
So our mind is always looking for problems that it can solve.
Yeah.
But the intention is that we direct our mind. But so often people live an everyday life and their mind is directing their life. Their mind is dictating about fears of paying the bills at the end of the month, about a relationship or not a relationship, about a business growth or losing and closing the doors, or that's all coming from our mind, and it's doing its job, but it's just running chaotically because we're not stepping up to control it. And so what happens as we start taking ownership, as we start understanding that even, and we start taking that ownership, now we can guide our mind and focus where its attention is going. If I'm trying to solve a complex problem, I want my mind to work on that. But the vision for my life and how I want that to go and how I want to spend my day and aligning with what I desire and stuff, I don't want my mind tied to that because it's such a limiting force. And it really, when you talk to people who are very, very successful, and everybody tells you they got the roadmap and everything, but if you really look at it, there's instances that happen in every single one of those cases they could not have strategized for, they could not have efforted for, they could not have put the plan together for it to work out the way it does. What really happens is at some point they got into alignment with what it was they desired. And when we do that, all of a sudden situations, circumstances, conditions start opening up, potential starts showing up, possibilities start showing up. That's how I've built this entire business. I don't run ads. I don't do any of the things they tell me I should be doing in order to have a successful business. But I stay in alignment with the impact that I want my life to have. So in a couple of years, a year and a half from now, when I launch an institute to certify other coaches in the SMT program I developed, to expand my footprint now, and then even after I'm gone from here, it continues on. That's my lightning, man. That's that thing that lights me up and ignites me into doing what I'm doing and why I'm so happy I get to do this.
Hey, it's Giuliano. I'm just popping in here to say how much I appreciate you being here listening, and that I hope you're enjoying the show. The more support that the show gets, the more episodes can be produced. If you can only support by sharing it with others or leaving a review, I appreciate that so much. But if you're the type of person who would like to support the show directly, you can do so by visiting howtobeaperson.co and click support the show, or just click the link in the show notes. Every bit of support means the world to me, and no matter how you choose to support the show, I appreciate you being here listening. I love what I do, and it's because of people like you who listen to the show that I get to keep doing it. Thanks again so much for being here. All right, back to the episode. So when you talk about alignment and things coming together from that, do you mean that in like a spiritual sense, or like in a practical sense, or both, or what?
All encompassing. So
Okay.
the way I operate is, we know about the mindset, right? And that's what all my focus is on. My doctorate, all that stuff is based on basically the subconscious, but in our conscious mind. You know, I talked about the CNN constant negative news.
Yeah.
If we watch that all the time, and that's where we're flowing, and we're getting into all the politics, and we're getting into all the, all the different things and stuff like that, then that's what's flowing through us, and that's what's going to come out of us, and that's what we're going to experience in our life. So when we take the conscious mind and we focus it on what we want to focus on, is somebody who wants a great family and love relationship and finances and things like that, and they start focusing the mind on that once they learn how, and start opening that up, then that's flowing through the whole system. Okay. So the knowing of what we want is in our conscious mind. Most people I meet, Giuliano, I go, what do you want? Like, what do you want in life? I don't know. I just want to get to the end of the month, or I just want to get past this, payroll period. Or I just want to get right. I mean, we hear that a lot.
And what they don't want. They're really clear on what they don't want.
Very so much so. And now what I do is I take that person, and within a very short period of time, I help take that, because we all start there. The pain is a great motivator. We start there. And then I help them flip that 180 to come up with what they do want. But most people never even take the time to ask themselves that question. Out of a lifetime that we never get to repeat a single day, can't tell you what they really want out of this life. And I was one of those people, so I'm not speaking from a higher level or anything like that. I know exactly what that feels like to be in that place.
Oh, for sure.
And so with that, so when we start getting clarity on what we want, that's in the conscious mind. Okay. And then we have the subconscious that we hear a lot about, right? And the subconscious hosts all of our patterns, paradigms, programming, our belief systems, all of that stuff, our experiences, things like that is in that. Well, the voice we hear in our head is coming from the programming in the subconscious mind. So when we want to do something, it's like, well, you can't do that. Or, like, who do you think you are? There's no way business. I have a client, the highest client I've ever had, and I share that openly, went from 7.5 to over $22 million in 12 calendar months. And it was the only year of their adult life. Up until that point, they took 5 weeks of vacation during that time. So people hear that and they go, that's bullshit. There's no way. That's impossible. Okay. It will always be impossible for as long as you live your life. And here's the sad part. It'll be impossible for anybody else who talks to you or associates you, or any kids that you're given to raise, or your church community, or your whatever it is. You're canceling that out for all those people because you're so locked in that belief system that it's impossible. So then once we have that, okay, now we start getting to something, we start identifying what are those things going on in the program and causing the way of thinking, which really is our perceptions, right? How we see the world, how we see us in the world. And those perceptions are leading to the results we're experiencing. So somebody struggling in finances, they can't wake up. It doesn't work to wake up one day and go, okay, as of today, I'm going to be wealthy, damn it. And then see that happen, because there's things working against that person in that subconscious. So now we got the conscious mind of what we know, of knowing what we want. And we got the conscious, and then we got the subconscious, which the power of the subconscious is it triggers the brain waves to the actions we take or don't take. That's huge. Because somebody who's coming from a lack, from struggle, from poor relationship over poor relationship, things like that. So now they want something different. They know what they want. They want clarity on what that is. They're feeding the channels. They're not watching the CNNs, things like that and stuff. But they can't get themselves to take the action. We call that procrastination, or we call that I'm not accountable to my desires and things like that. So, and Giuliano, people will say that to me when I talk to them, and they'll go, well, I need somebody to hold me accountable. And I go, no freaking way do you need somebody to hold you accountable. What you need is an avenue that you're excited about. And when we get excited about what we're doing, it's hard to hold us back, right? You've been in that position where you get that, like those conversations you're talking about, which are huge. And so we get that side of things lit. And now all of a sudden we have alignment between the conscious and the subconscious, right? So there's no longer that gap. We close that gap up by aligning them. And then what I do, and this is the only thing that's ever worked for me out of everything I've tried, is I develop what I call a dynamic vision for that life that I want to experience. Okay. And now I have the vision, which I call my reality, is in alignment with my conscious mind, which is the knowing, which is in alignment with the subconscious, which is the doing part of it. And now I have full alignment there. So as I do so, as I start bringing this alignment together, my perceptions shift. I become open to a bigger possibility than I could have ever imagined. And as I shift my perceptions, we've already determined, change my results. That's what I mean when I say full alignment.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I've said that for a long time, like when you're talking about accountability and things like that, and like people feeling like they don't have discipline or motivation. It's like, you don't need motivation or discipline to do the things that are in alignment. Like, you just do them, right? It's almost like when you ask, like, you can ask them like, well, do you need discipline to take a shower every day? It's like, no, you just do it, right? Because you want to be clean. And it's like, okay. And you want to smell good. You want to be hygienic, right? Whatever. The point
Yeah,
is that when
whatever
you
it is.
want it, it just
We
comes
can go
easy.
really deep into that one.
Exactly. Exactly. But the point is that like you don't actually need to be motivated in order to get stuff done and in order to get yourself to do things. Like I think that was one of like the biggest learnings for me over the years was realizing that I was trying to force myself to do things because someone else said it was important instead of realizing, wait a second, is that actually important to me? And if there's a part of it that's important to me, maybe there's another way I can fulfill that besides the way that they're telling me I can fulfill it, if that makes
And
sense.
now you've opened up an entirely different playing field. You have when you do that.
Yeah.
Because we so often think we're not enough. So we gotta go with somebody who is enough. And then we gotta do what they say to do because we want, and we've been programmed when I talk about this stuff, we've been programmed like that. If you want something, find someone who has what you want and do what they did and you'll get it. That's bullshit. That never, ever, 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 ever works. Because I'm not that person and they're not me and they're not
Yeah.
you and you're not them. And, and it goes on and on and on. So what it has to be is it has to be the defining of my playground. Somebody else's play. I always laugh when you see the social media things, and I'm not knocking anything, but it just
Sure.
gives me a chuckle when you're watching social media and they go, we have your roadmap to success. And I think, I'm going to clean it up for this. I think you don't even know my name. But you got my roadmap to figure out how I'm going to be successful. And I bought into that for a lot of years. And I'd walk away from those things. And because I learned, but I didn't get results, even more so it would fulfill that programming that says, see, you are broken. You're broken beyond repair. And then that sparked living life by that definition, which I'm telling you, when I say, I'm so happy now because there's times I really didn't want to live. Those were those times. Yeah. Those were those times. And so, so it's not about, and that's one of the things I love about what I get to do. I tell my people right up front, I have no freaking idea what your roadmap is. But somehow I've been really gifted in being able to help you define what that is very quickly. And then we bring that into play. That was, I told you, that was my highest, growth of any client. I've had a lot of other ones, not quite that growth, but I've had a lot of other ones. And all of it is setting up their roadmap to success. Every one of them is developing that business unique to that individual. And then developing systems of accelerating habits that are unique to that individual. Hundreds of clients I've served over the past decade, not two of them have the same systems of habits that they follow because they're unique to that individual. So instead of going through life pulled away from who we authentically are, trying to follow a pathway that says you got to make this many calls a day, you got to do this much outreach, you got to do the da 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 da, and you have people killing themselves into burnout, exhaustion. Giuliano, it almost makes me cry when I talk to a business owner or who was a business owner and they closed their business because of fatigue and overwork and they just couldn't handle it anymore. And all it was is they were trying to follow somebody else's strategy and somebody else's process because they didn't know that they have it in them to bring out their own.
It's so true. I mean, I think that's probably one of see, this is the thing is like we're conditioned that way from a young age, right? I think this is, so we have our son's about to turn 8 months old. And
cool. Yeah, 5-month-old grandson, first one.
Oh, wow. There you go. Look at that. So we've been thinking a lot about like him and what we want for him and things like that. And it takes me back because I've always had an opinion about this, and now I have a son, so I'm thinking about it even more. Is just like I always did really, really well in school. Like I always got good grades. But I never liked it. Like I never was like, I love school. I was always like, I never liked it. And I look back on it now and I think, man, it's kind of crazy. Like we go and I don't blame people, right? There's no judgment. Again, I went to public school and I don't blame people who send their kids to public school. I think everyone, like we mentioned earlier, is just, you're on your own journey, figuring out your life and doing whatever you want. And who's to say I'm right and you're wrong? Like you might be right and I'm wrong. But the point is that like, I think back to that and it's like, you have to ask someone for permission to just perform a bodily function. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like raising your hand to go to the bathroom. That seems so crazy to me. But like
Mhm.
you do that. I mean, everyone uses the bathroom every few hours, right? So it's like every day, at least once, probably twice a day, you are asking for permission to use the bathroom. It's like you can't tell me that that does not imprint on your mind after years and years of doing that, that you are not capable of making decisions for yourself. Like
And
it's,
it builds upon itself. So
yeah,
in that same system there, now we get into middle school, right? And you and I are in the same. I know there's a difference, but let's say you
sure.
and I are in the same algebra class together, okay? And we're given a problem to solve. And let's say that I go through the entire step by step by step by step by exhaustive step by step by step to figure
Mm,
out right a problem,
yeah.
and I get the right answer. I get 100%. Now you come along, younger, brighter, better looking, and you start doing that, and then you got a shortcut for a few of those steps that you can skip over and still get the correct answer. You're not rewarded or awarded for the genius thinking in that. You're
Mm,
actually marked down because you didn't show all of that work. And that
mm,
systems continue to go like that from the time we're kids all the way up today, right now, today, it
yeah.
continues to go forward. And if
Yeah.
we're not consciously, I love this quote by Wallace Wattles, is he says, if you are not consciously choosing to be rich, excellent, and healthy, then you're unconsciously choosing to be poor, mediocre, and unhealthy.
Mm,
And we live by that every day. And I meet business owners who, because their business isn't working, they're going at it harder and they're putting in more hours and they're trying to invest more money to get that turnaround point or things like that, or people with relationships or personal finances or whatever area of life it may be, Giuliano. And they're doing what the subconscious programming is leading them to do and getting more frustrated, more burned out, more. And that's when I see people who give up. It can be marriages and families, it can be businesses, it can be whatever, and they just give up because it's so hard to try and keep it going. But they're going about it based on the programming, not who they authentically are.
mm. Yeah, it's so interesting because it's almost as if so I've shared this story before, but I went to therapy for and it's funny. I ended up connecting with my therapist again like years later, and he's like, "You only came for like 7 sessions, by the way, just so you know." But to me, it was like super impactful. And there's this exercise that I do, and I've talked about it before, but it's called "I like myself for being,"
Mhm.
and it's exactly that. At the top of the page, you write "I like myself for being," and then you have 10 slots, and you have to fill in all 10 slots. And what made me think of this was partly what you were saying before, that like there was a point where you didn't want to be here, and I was in a similar place, and I remember how much this changed everything for me,
Yes.
um, because it was hard, right? Like when I had to write that list at first, it was so difficult. It
Yeah.
was like I struggled to come up with like 3 or 4 things,
Yeah.
and by the time, and he was like, "But you have to fill out the entire thing." And by the time I got to filling out the whole thing, I was like, I'm a different person.
Right? Okay.
Yeah.
When I talked about perceptions, that I don't want to say simple, but that exercise, that little exercise shifted your perceptions
Yes.
right there.
Yes. It's great. Like,
And
what's
here's,
funny is when I talk about it, I think it's
yeah,
really, really easy for people to be like, oh, well, then you weren't really depressed or you didn't really blah, blah, blah. Cause there's no way that it's that simple. And you're like, look, I'm telling you, if you actually sit down and do this,
yes,
you will get to that point where you're like, wow, this is really hard. And once you push past it and you get to the end of that list, it is like you do this 180 in your mind. And part of the reason why I brought this up as well is because I think that I mean, I wouldn't even say a majority, I would say most people do not like themselves and don't even realize it. And I didn't realize it until I wrote that list and I realized I can't even come up with anything. And I think that if more people liked themselves, then they would be more open to the idea that there's a way they can get what they want in life their own way because they fully like themselves, accept themselves, and
yeah.
say, hey, I could do it my way and get everything I want.
And yeah. And if you asked me that question, I don't know if that would be my take on it, that people don't like it. I'd say that people don't really know themselves.
Mm.
We are so conditioned. The squeaky wheel gets the grease, right? Have you heard that?
Yeah.
Because I am, a little bit older than you. And so what that means is whatever the problem is what gets the attention, right? Whatever's broken gets the attention. Whatever's not working gets the
Mm.
attention, right?
Yeah.
And we never take time to look at all the good that we do in our lives and stuff.
Yeah.
That's why, like every client I meet with, we start the conversation with at least 5 minutes of what's going well, what's successful. I've helped companies, $100 million organizations turn around and get out of bankruptcy back into profitability within less than a year by looking at what's going right and building on that rather than what's going wrong. We're conditioned to
Mm.
look at life as the next problem to solve, with the carrot being out there that eventually there won't be any more problems and life will be utopia. It'll be good. It'll be fulfilling. That's not part of the human condition. It's just not. And so what it is when we can take that and separate the problems, we start getting into that alignment we talked about and doing all of those things. Now, all of a sudden, the situations, circumstances, and conditions we face become like little speed bumps rather than walls.
Mm.
That we run up against, because we've not been elevating our perception of ourselves and our perception of ourselves within the world. We've shrunk down the squeaky wheels, the problems. And most of them, how many problems have you had that like kept you up at night and everything that took care of themselves? You couldn't have figured the solution for. I have numerous of them, And so when we get into alignment like that, and we start, and that's a big part of what I do, is getting to really know ourselves. Not the masks we wear, not the things we cover up, not how we act under stress and anxiety and all of that, but just who am I when we get to that core? And I'll tell you, I get so much joy out of this because I meet somebody and they're in this struggle place where I've been and stuff. And so I understand that, and they just, because we live in this conditioning that you got to know the answer and you got to know what to do and you got to this and that and everything else, which is all BS, so we live in that conditioning. And what it is I can never get help if all I'm relying on is what's between these two ears. Man, I'm very limited on the help and the power and the resources available to me is when I get into alignment.
Mm.
And so as we're doing this, I'll help somebody come out of the gate developing a dynamic vision, which is a lot of clarity around what it is, but then the feeling, tone, and walk in that life. And so as we do that, I've had people who say, I want to take my business from a couple $100,000 to $500,000. If I can do that, I'll be great. And it's like, really? Really? Part of that is a conditioning of, I really want this. Oh my God, I couldn't even imagine what it would be, but this is what I want. I'll settle for this, though. I'll settle for this. This will be okay, right? And that's what we do in life. We call that, some people call it plan A and plan B, and I don't work from shit like that. Okay. It's really, I don't work from the plan B. If we want this, we're going to go for this. Because here's what happens in reality. If we want this and go bigger, it just opens us up to a greater possibility and impact in other people's life. If we get what we're going for, if we get a little bit less than that, it's still way above this. So we've still expanded beyond what we really thought we could. Mm. So when I'm helping somebody develop that vision and I help them start growing that vision of the possibility, I have people that will, at first, Giuliano, they'll yell at me. I've had clients who said, you know what, I'm not hanging up on you, but I need to go, and they'd hang the phone up and stuff. But then they come back, and I understand that, because you know what's happening in that is they're not fighting me. They're fighting that freaking programming that's telling them they're not enough. They're not worthy of it. They shouldn't. They're asking for too much. Who do you think you are? That's what they're fighting, not me. Mm. And I love getting to be there for people and help them to get through that. Does that make sense?
It really does. It really does. I think a lot of us, I mean, it reminds me of what you were talking about earlier, where you saw your parents struggling and you said you didn't want to struggle, but then you ended up struggling. And it was because before you said this, it was because, I mean, obviously, right, you're talking about the programming, but it was because you believed that it had to be hard in order to be able to get what you wanted, because that's what you saw, right? It's like, you saw them trying so hard to get what they wanted and they still didn't get it. And you're like, wow, it must be really, really hard to get what you want. And instead of being able to be like, wait a second, maybe it's like, that analogy, I'm climbing the wrong ladder. I'm like, pounding on the wrong door or whatever it might be. It's like you're working on the wrong thing essentially.
Mm-hmm. I've had a few opportunities. One of them would have completely changed the rest of my life. In my early 20s, would have changed my entire life financially, everything else and stuff like that. And within 3 days, I said, I can't do this. And I couldn't figure out why. And it took me a little bit of time from there. And that's really when I started on this journey. Mm-hmm. Is the only thing I could come up with, and I wasn't even sure, Giuliano, was it was too easy. It was too easy. Something's not going to be right with it. Later on, I would shift that into it was too easy for me to believe that I was worthy of something like that.
Interesting. If you've been stuck waiting for the right moment to start your business or scale the one you already have, this is for you. OPM Mastery helps entrepreneurs get the capital they need, and you can get pre-qualified in under 2 minutes with no credit check. They've already helped over 1,200 companies secure more than $134 million in funding. Whether you need working capital, financing for real estate, money to purchase equipment, or you're just launching something new, they can help you qualify fast. Just go to funding.howtobeaperson.co or click the link in the show notes to apply now. All right, back to the show. Yeah, I have a recent experience with that. So one of the things, I do a lot of different things. And one of the things I do, I'm actually a commercial actor. And I've had, part of the reason I got into it was because I was interested in acting, but also because it was like, hey, you can make this much a day. And I was like, oh, that's pretty sweet, And so I learned about it and I got into it and I've gotten some pretty decent paying gigs. But I have this one that I auditioned for recently and I was just like, wow, it's like, let me just be vague, but it's 5 figures a day and it's multiple days. It's probably like 3 or 4 days that I'm going to be working.
Nice.
And I'm sitting here like, oh wait, I'm sorry. Wait. I said 5 figures a day. I'm sorry. 4 figures a day. Okay. Just to be clear, still really, really good. Still really, really good. Okay. That's still good.
Yes, absolutely.
For a lot of people, that's more than they'll ever make in their life in a day. Right. And what I mean is their daily, how much they would make per day is they'll never make that 4 figures in a day. A lot of people. And I'm sitting here like, I never get nervous. Like I've never been nervous about any of these. I'm super comfortable on camera. Anyway, I was just thinking about it and I was getting so nervous and I was like, man, I don't know if I can do this. And I'm like, blah, blah. And I was thinking about this exact topic recently. I was like, wow, it's so much money in comparison to what I'm used to making for such little effort for something that I just comes so easily to me that it's just like, for some reason I was getting scared and nervous. You're like, what? Wait, you're good at this. It's easy. It's fun and it's good money. Like there's literally nothing to be afraid of,
No downside.
Yeah, exactly.
There's conditioning.
Yes.
So here's part of the thing. That's a great illustration. If I could break that down a little bit.
Please, yeah.
Because I think it'll help to explain some of the stuff we're talking about is so with that, most of our programming, we don't even realize we're living through that programming because it just feels so natural and normal to live through that programming. The person that I talked about with that business up to $22 million in a year from 7.5, it's not that they wouldn't want to experience that, but they won't ever do that because their programming will not allow them to. So it's not that we don't want to do these things. It's our program. My programming wouldn't allow me to take advantage of those, But even when you started this whole thing, now as you talked more about it, you could see your like full excitement for this thing, which you should have full excitement for this whole thing, right? But when you brought it up, how did you bring it up? You didn't bring it up like, man, I got this freaking incredible experience that I just got, and I just received it. It just showed up in my lap. You didn't do that. You minimized it. Do you remember what you? I don't remember the exact words, but you minimized the way you said it before you went into explaining it and stuff. And that's programming. That's that conditioning. That's that programming inside. And then when you say, wow, and you get that a spark of excitement, but at the same time you start hearing that other side kicking in, going, you know what? Really? I mean, this is too easy. That's one of the terms that really stands out for me when somebody says, that's just too easy.
Yeah.
That's programming that we don't even realize is telling us that. And then we repeat it verbally, which means we strengthen it more, which means we strengthen that link to that programming, and then that gets stronger, and we hear it more often, and we hear it wider spread and stuff. I mean, such a great story there, man.
Yeah, and I think it's really easy to also in those moments not realize that that's what's happening, and you start coming up with excuses, right? Like for me, I was like, oh well, this one has a lot of speaking lines, and in the past a lot of the ones I've done were not a lot of lines, and so this one's going to be like really hard to actually like memorize them, and like coming up with these like excuses,
right?
Like maybe I can't
do
it.
Problems right there. The mind left unattended, running on its own, starts bringing up all the problems and all the reasons it can and all the disasters, and that's how people live. That's how we live life unless we understand the difference, do the work of shifting it, coming up with our unique roadmap to it, and then start guiding and directing our mind. And it sounds like a lot, but it's not. And the other thing I love about the way I've set this whole thing up with helping people is it becomes exciting right from the start. So it's not trudgery. It's not going, oh my God, I did that again, or oh man, I always do that, or I never do that, or, it's not coming from that place. It's going from like, holy shit, man, look what just happened.
Yeah.
And then again and again and again. And then we see that build upon that and stuff. I've never lived life as full as I do now. Even with things I love doing in my life that I've dreamt of my whole entire life, like running off a 2,000-foot mountaintop with a hang glider, or motorcycling back and forth across the country and into Canada. And I won't now because of the Olympic thing. I think they're a little sore with us and stuff. So. I keep bringing that up in conversations. But anyways, no, but you know what I'm saying? We have access to living wherever we are right now, with whatever we have right now, whatever's going on right now. We have availability to live life with fulfillment, with purpose, with passion, with excitement. But nobody can do that for us. Only we can choose to head in that direction.
Do you think that, because this is my experience, is that the things that I viewed as a problem in the past, the solutions and the way out was always right there, right in front of me, and I just couldn't see it. And I'm wondering if you feel like that's the case for anyone and everyone, right? If they're listening and they go, well, but you don't understand, like my situation, I'm stuck because of X, Y, Z and blah, blah, blah. Is it really the case that, because I'm not saying like, oh, just think a different thought and all of a sudden you'll think different things, right? Obviously there's a lot to it, but it at its core is a shift in perspective, right? That's what we were talking about. Is like, is it really the case that simply a shift in perspective can be what's needed to help people to solve any of the problems they have?
Yeah, not quite that simple, but ultimately, yeah, I've had clients come to me and they're doing $150,000 a year and they want to get to 300,000. And I go, why not 5? What about 500,000? Doesn't that sound exciting? They go, no, I could never do that. I want to do something that I can reasonably think I can do. Here's what happens. In the moment they think that, which is all coming from programming, because what our potential is limitless, but it's defined by that programming. Mm-hmm. And so now we come into it and we go through, from 150 to 300,000. Okay, so that'll be the vision. And then I start breaking it down. Well, how would you do that? And every time they have a strategy and a plan and a backup plan and a recovery plan and ways of which they can do it, which isn't bad, but it means we're so programmed to live through our logical mind, to figure it out, to come up with the strategy, to come up with the action plans. And so in doing that, our potential is so small when it's locked into what's between our two ears versus everything that's available to us. So now when I start helping them get into the 300,000, and if I can't really get somebody, I say that I always get people to expand beyond what that is, because if somebody's develops a vision based on what they can do, it's always going to be small. So I have to get them to expand outside of that, even if it's just a little bit, from 300 to 350. And now all of a sudden that person topples over $1 million in that same calendar year in business. Now all of a sudden that person is going, I'm seeing 5 million next year.
Mm.
Because what happens is that programming determines our perceptions of ourselves. And I know I've said this before. I'm not saying it as a repeat, as a smart ass, but those and that perception of the world and how we fit into it. So if we're never questioning those things, if we're never identifying and shifting that programming inside of us, we'll always live by those perceptions, which then equal our results.
Yeah.
So when the person's at 300,000, the person that toppled over 22, all they wanted to get to was 10 million. That was it. From 7.5 to $10 million. That's what they wanted to do. And then I stretched them a little bit because to 12.5, and they go, well, I don't know how I can do 12.5. And I go, exactly. Now we're sparking on the dynamic vision because it's bigger than you know how to do, which means you have to be open to learning more things. Kind of like one of my mentors, the late Bob Proctor used to talk about is he said, he talked to a guy one time at a seminar, and the guy said to him, because he was talking about vision, and the guy says, I'm going to buy a new car. He goes, okay, what kind of car you want to buy? And he told him color, name, Chevrolet, whatever it is and stuff. And he goes, okay. And he goes, have you ever bought a brand new car before? And the guy goes, oh yeah, I bought the same exact car a few years ago. I just want a newer model. That's not a vision. But that's what our conditioning will have us do. It'll just continue doing the things they might be small, but they're little successes we've had, and continue doing those and living in those successes. But through my course of my lifetime, I've learned I'm not here for little baby steps into, decent. I want to step out, man. I want to experience that when my feet leave that ledge and that excitement begins and you get to experience that ecstasy of flying. And that's living life. When we get to that point like that, when that crossing over and fear and so many other obstacles come up through the programming and conditioning and stuff like that. But that's what it is. It's about going beyond that. And if we can't do it in our thoughts, even, we'll never experience it in reality.
That's interesting. It's almost as if like our reality is essentially living within the capacity of our mind. And therefore, if we want our reality to expand, we have to expand the capacity of our
So
thoughts.
that means, think about what you just said there. That means we can't change situations to put us in a point of having huge success. We can't change circumstances. We can't change people, places, things. We have no power over those things. But we have power over our mind. We have power over the conscious mind that we talked about with the knowing and the seeing and all that. And then we have areas. See, one of the things I'm so passionate about what I do, because aside from how long I lived my life in misery, feeling like I was a waste of a human being, I felt so bad because they didn't have these tools available when my mom and dad. And Giuliano, they were really, really, really good people with a lot of love and heart. And they damn near killed themselves struggling, trying to make it okay for us and give us a future and opportunity, And so when I get to help somebody, I know that breaks not just for them, but there's a generational change in that programming and that conditioning for whoever follows.
Yeah, I think what you said about the power, like we only have the power to change ourselves. I think that is probably one of the biggest shifts in actually improving your life, is because it's really easy to like complain about the circumstances, right? It's easy to complain about the conditions of like what's happening or what has happened to you or what your current situation is and all of that stuff. But in that complaining, it's like you're complaining about something external, which ultimately, no matter what, like there are certain things you might be able to have an influence on, but you don't have control over any of it. And this is why I say it's one of the biggest shifts. When I read years ago, I read the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And I think that was probably one of the first things he talks about is taking responsibility. And that is it's so important, because you realize, wait a second, I can't change anything out there. What I can change is what's in here. But the funny thing is, as soon as you change what's in here, everything outside of you changes too.
And only because you said that, I got to point this out, okay? Because
Please.
a lot of people think for me to take responsibility means it's all my fault and I got to take the blame and the weight of it and everything else. And that's bullshit. That
No.
I know I've said that a few times, but it is. That's
Yeah.
complete, utter BS right there. It's not about blame.
Yep.
We do the best we can do with what we have and where we're at.
Yeah.
But as we become more knowledgeable, as we become understanding, if somebody's listening to this and it's really penetrating for them and things like that, to finish listening to this and then just go walk back into that old life is doing such a huge disservice for yourself. So when we get new information, we step into looking at that and wherever and letting the pathway lead us into it and stuff. But we have to do something with the information coming in. To just hear it doesn't change shit. When I'm doing live workshops and stuff or keynote speaking or things like that, I'll tell people right then, that hearing this, is this motivational for people? I'll have them raise their hand and everything, get into it. And one of the things I always laugh because I'm sorry, just a 30-second here, but
please.
I love what I do, man. You can tell that. So when I'm on stage, I tell the audience, like, listen, they tell me that I get 10,000 steps out of every talk I give. Because, man, I move that stage because it moves my energy and stuff like that, and sometimes I'll be talking and I'll be looking and I'll be like, how'd I end up over here? And I'll go back, you know what I mean? And things like that. But I just let them happen and stuff. But in that, I'll tell them, man, there's a 72-hour shelf life. If you raise your hand that this is motivational, you could sit through this whole thing. And then you leave here and maybe talk about it a little bit. You feel that goodness inside or that spark of possibility and stuff. And then you walk away and you go back into your life. Within 72 hours, it was like you wasted your time and money coming to hear this because there's no change that will happen. When we get sparked is where that flame gets lit. Even if it's just like a candle flame that gets lit. And then we step into it and that thing will start growing and growing and growing into a bonfire. Is how we pursue it, how we bring about change in our life. It's not up to us to get that spark. That will happen through our living of life, but it's what we do, again, to control what we do with that spark. But anybody that's blaming yourself for your past or blaming yourself for where you're at in your current struggle, or there's actions you took that led to that. Of course, every one of us there are, but it's not your fault. And blaming yourself is just wasting more freaking time.
Yep.
It doesn't matter ultimately what is the benefit of knowing who to blame is for that? There isn't.
No.
It's based on this isn't working and this sparks, maybe this could. That's all that matters. Every client I work with, I tell them I only care about 2 points of reference. Where are you right now? Not how'd you get here? Whose fault is it? Where are you right now? Let's get clarity on that. And then we build that dynamic vision. Where do you want to be? What does that life look like? What's it feel like to wake up being that person, experiencing that life? From those 2 points of reference, I've been able to help hundreds of clients over the past decade, and that's growing even more as I start doing the Institute and such.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I totally agree with you when it comes to the idea of taking responsibility. I think there is a lot wrapped up in that, like that people think it's like they have to, and this is what I'm saying. It's okay that you don't agree with me. I think a lot of people don't like themselves. And I think part of it is because of what you said, that they don't know themselves and so I think we're both right here. but what I mean,
it flows together. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah. But the reason why I'm bringing that up is because I think people are taking the blame for where they're at instead of taking responsibility for where they're going.
Yes.
And like, that's ultimately it. Like if you take responsibility for what you have control over, which is, I mean, ultimately your thoughts, right? Because your actions are going to come from your thoughts, right? That's what we've been talking about this whole time.
Yeah.
And
I want to disagree with you on something there. And everything you said was perfect right now. I just want to say disagree. I just want to disagree just because it seems like you hold a grudge because that was so long ago that happened with that one.
Wait, what? Oh,
I'm just totally kidding you, Giuliano.
I was like, wait, I'm so confused. What?
I'm sorry.
So funny. No, you're good. You're good. No. And, I think that's the thing is like, so like you said, if people are listening and they, get that spark and they want to do something, it's like, well, then what is that?
Yeah. What's the next action? Whatever the next action is, it's for part of your audience, for you, for my way of saying thank you for allowing me to, have this conversation with you and stuff, is I offer a free conversation with people. There's no sales. I don't talk about programs. I don't talk. All it is to serve. So if somebody got a little spark out of this, or maybe it's a big flame they got out of this and stuff, and they want to, if not, like, it's to help a person that flickered that spark to find not my avenue, not your avenue, but to find some things that is their avenue that they can step into to help keep that flame, flowing and brightening.
Nice. And so if someone wants to do that, how would they do so?
Yeah, anybody can go to coachwithjoey.com and schedule that.
Coachwithjoey.com. Well, hey, Dr. Joseph, this has been an awesome conversation, man. I really appreciate you taking the time to come on and dive into this with me.
I love this, man. Once we're done here, we're going to talk because, this is a great conversation. You're a great host, man.
Thank you so much.
I would put a little bit of gray in the beard there.
I'm gonna, I have, ever since my son was born, I've got this like one gray right here. I'm like, it's coming.
Was that do you think that was just mean to bring that up right now, Julie? I mean, look at me.
No. It's so funny.
Love it, man.
Yeah. Well, like I said, man, I really appreciate you coming on, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
You too. We'll talk soon.
Thanks for being here. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review or share it with someone who'd appreciate it. For everything I have to offer, visit howtobeaperson.co.